How has the role of a leader or a chief executive changed given the new world of work?
Yes, we've all had to make adjustments because of this, the agile approach to work. But it was something actually that we were wanting to move people towards. The world of employment has been opened up massively through technology, but also through a different mindset. It's about outcomes as opposed to time spent in the office at certain points in time.
How do we retain people into our sector as well?
You've got to keep having those right conversations in order to understand what your employees, what your colleagues see that is adding value to them.
The rating you've just received, so G1, V1, C1, talk us through some of the work that you've put in behind the scenes to achieve that.
I truly believe we wouldn't have had the outcome in terms of our colleague engagement, the levels of satisfaction that we get if we didn't have.
Wayne, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, James. Good to be here.
Yeah, I mean, we've just had a nice chat offline, so I'm excited for the content of this one. But as we always like to start, do you mind just giving us a little introduction to yourself, Wayne?
Yeah, so Wayne Gales, Chief Exec of Weaver Vale Housing Trust. We're an organisation, housing association that's based in Cheshire, predominantly some homes in Warrington, around about 6,500 homes, our own in-house teams delivering not just your really important housing management, but also some really good support services, as well as we've got our own in-house maintenance team who deliver a lot of maintenance for us.
Amazing. And I've just said it offline, but I'll say it online. But congrats on the rating you've just received. So G1, V1, C1. Obviously, there's, as we said, there's no real silver bullet. But talk me through, must be really pleasing as a chief exec of the organisation. Firstly, that was your rating. But talk us through some of the work that you've put in behind the scenes to achieve that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, an excellent outcome for us, in terms of the gradings, and sends a clear message, I guess, to all of our stakeholders that we're well governed, we're financially robust, and I think really important for us is we've got a real good focus on those that we serve, and rather than sort of, I suppose, reference, there isn't any silver bullet, as you say, but I think we're not doing anything different now post our August announcement in terms of the ratings from the regulator. We're not doing anything different now than what we did before that, our destination is clear. We're really clear on our purpose as an organisation, what we're about, where our focus is, and the inspection was a sort of a stop in the port really on that journey. It's really, really important that it is. It is a point in time, and we as an organisation, and those we serve sort of will be judged on what we do each and every day thereafter, as opposed to that inspection process.
Yeah, and you've worked in the sector a long time. Talk to me how important you see culture and people, because the podcast is going to focus on that. But how important is it for a housing association to get that right? Because it's sometimes been neglected. But how important for you is it that internally your people and your culture is aligned to purpose, but also to kind of the company values, etc. Talk us through what you think on that.
Yeah, it's pretty fundamental, James, to us. I truly believe we wouldn't have had the outcome, not just around inspection, but the outcomes that we get in terms of our colleague engagement, the levels of satisfaction that we get through our surveys with our customers. We wouldn't be getting those if we didn't have motivated people who value the organisation, value what it stands for, understand its direction of travel, and recognise their part in that. What their contribution is, and recognise that we're an organisation that, as well as wanting to listen to our customers to understand when we're getting things right, as well as when we're getting things wrong, but also we want to absolutely listen to our colleagues. To understand, the things that we're doing well, that we want to enhance, but also areas where we can do better in terms of giving them the right tools to do the job, the adjustments that we need to be making in terms of their roles, and giving them the freedom that they need in order to go out and succeed, but also that flexibility in terms of managing their own sort of work-life balance and all the things, I guess, that employees expect now. These are expectations, but that ongoing dialogue. So we do nothing, I guess, different with our colleagues than we do with our customers in terms of wanting to be really open, really honest, create an opportunity for feedback and engagement constantly, and importantly, listen. and then respond accordingly.
Yeah, because when I was doing research for this, and it's a great accolade, and I'm not just going to talk about all the things that you've done well, because I'm sure there's been challenges along the way, but you're often ranked as the #1 housing association on the best companies survey. Why is that? I mean, I know you're being very modest, but why is it that you keep ranking so high on that survey, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, we don't do it anymore. We don't do the best companies, but you're right. For many, many years, we always came out of that, towards the top of the league tables. It comes back to that point around what we absolutely wanted. We wanted a meaningful engagement tool, a survey, to understand from our people what we were doing well, things we could improve on, and to constantly test the temperature. And that annual survey was an opportunity to do that. But I use the word constant then because I think, my focus always, and my big message to colleagues always, as it is with our customers, is, don't wait for a survey to tell us whether we're doing something right or wrong.
100%. Yeah.
But fundamentally, the best companies survey was a real annual opportunity to I guess understand whether all the things we were constantly hearing and throughout the year was true. And an opportunity for people with a high degree of confidence to be able to give us that feedback. The feedback that we took was then used it to help inform us working with colleagues. Again, another opportunity for colleagues. We could get underneath what people were saying to us so we could further improve and I guess develop the organization, enhance its culture, and in some instances do some really, really small adjustments that meant a lot to people. So for us, that listening is absolutely key. Listening to learn is really, really key. We do talk across the organisation. I'm the first to sort of to say it really is, everyone's as important as everybody else. There's nobody more important than anyone else in the organisation, and therefore everyone's voice should be taken as equally valid and equally important. And the opportunities and the feedback we get from colleagues, and funnily enough, some people say, you do a colleague survey and it'll all be about them. Actually, quite a lot of it is also about how they can improve the organization, how they can improve customer service. So, you go into those things, those specific questions in best companies about me as a leader, and you have to be prepared for, to be told, that there are adjustments you need to make, or you're not accessible enough, et cetera, et cetera. And from those surveys, it's a real great opportunity to test the temperature, but also to genuinely learn, listen. You can't do everything, but I think the value of it is it opens up a real good opportunity. But it's not the only engagement tool that we've got as an organisation, but it's really key. And we're using a similar sort of approach now in-house ourselves. So just because we've moved away from best companies, we still absolutely see the value of that annual survey around all the other things that we're doing on a almost a weekly basis, really.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that. I think it's the action that comes off the back of these things 9 times out of 10, not the actual result of where you ranked. Because there's always improvement and there's always ways that you can continually improve a culture. But what we spoke about offline, which I really liked your view on, was how important openness and transparency is in a culture. But also because you've just mentioned it as a secondary question, kind of like how important has it been for you to be transparent as a leader within Weaver Vale for people to trust that they can put their opinions forward? Because in a lot of organisations, some people are worried about putting their thoughts through and their views across. But how have you found that as a leader, and also like how important has the open and transparency been for your business?
We still have challenges now with people saying, will this be confidential, won't it, et cetera, et cetera. And I think we constantly are reinforcing that message that it absolutely is. And as well as, there's no silly ideas, nobody's got a monopoly on good ideas, keep talking to us, etc. But the openness and the transparency, I think, has been absolutely key. We do share a lot as an organisation with all of our colleagues. So everything from where we are financially, the challenges we face that underpin the decisions that we make or that we may need to make, and the adjustments we might need to make, some of which fundamentally can affect them. And, big change around pensions over the last year. But we were really open and honest with colleagues about the reasons for that. And again, citing actions around and direction of travel around that purpose, so that golden thread that people talk about. So we are really, really open and honest about direction of travel, rationale for decision making, but that doesn't mean to say that we don't absolutely value, and that actually colleagues in the past have absolutely influenced some of the direction of travel, or indeed the timing of and the type of changes that we've had to make, because that is the whole purpose of that engagement piece. But in terms of transparency and openness, I'm involved in our joint staff forum. I go along to that. I don't chair it. We don't have offices as an exec, so we sit wherever we need to sit within the office, wherever there's a space, actually. We're accessible. We have a number of different engagement mechanisms within the trust. The annual survey is just one element of that. The joint staff forum, our engagement through with our unions, etc., etc. But those water cooler moments, etc., are all really, really key to that. But the one thing that we do, and we've done for a long, long time, is, back to purpose, back to corporate plan, getting our colleagues involved in our strategy areas. We've just done a review of values over the last 12 months. They were really front and center in shaping that. There's very little that's offline in terms of what any questions that we get, and we welcome questions, we'll always respond to, and that might mean me going to team meetings or other colleagues going to team meetings to ensure that we treat people with respect, but also we're all adults, we're all intelligent people. And I think sometimes organizations sort of can lose a little bit of that, so clearly we do have to be directive on occasions, but that's always typically after we've engaged, we've had the conversation, we've opened ourselves up for discussion, for debate, for feedback. Listening to learn as opposed to listening to tell really is key for us.
And how has it changed? I get asked this question loads, so I'd love to get your view on it. Is how has the role of a leader or a chief executive changed given the new world of work? Because it's not what it was previously. COVID made things a little bit more remote. I remember working in offices where you were in front of people all the time. There's then water cooler moments. Sometimes you don't see staff from day to day. What's changed for you in terms of, and how have you had to adapt your leadership style to kind of change with the way that the world is now in terms of leadership?
Yes, we've all had to make adjustments because of this, the agile approach to work. But it was something actually that we were wanting to move people towards. And I think, obviously the circumstances of the last few years have pushed us more towards that. So I actually think some of the outcomes from the changes that we've had to work our way through as an organization has actually enhanced our culture, so that openness, honesty piece, people not having to be, in the office at certain points in time, it's about outcomes as opposed to, the time spent in the business. So we absolutely focus on that. So, for me, I meet with all of our new starters. I think that's really, really important to set the scene. We obviously have our induction programs and all of those other things. But I think the accessibility piece is really, really key. So we, as an exec team, we're in the office, not all of the time, but we make sure we find time to be in the office. And I think a key part of the leadership style and approach within the trust is that recognition that as a leader, you have to find time to have the conversations, to be accessible, and that's not always something that's accepted. People think it's the stuff that's on the screen and the emails that are popping up and the pieces of work they have to do to support. Well, actually, a big part of leadership is about ensuring that you are finding the time, and actually you see that those necessary conversations, there's investment in people, reaching out and asking if people are okay, as well as praising them for when they're doing right, as well as performance managing when they're not. But those conversations are absolutely, those broader conversations are absolutely key, and a key element of our expectations of the leadership co-op. So in terms of what's changed, I clearly it's more challenging to be as accessible given people are working agile. So there are certain things, certain expectations we've got of our leaders that we'll do certain things face to face, and we'll find the time and we'll make the time to do that, so we don't become lazy around those all important relationships. And we put a lot of emphasis on those that emotional intelligence piece as well. And listening and learning. And I think the well-being piece, I suppose, quite rightly, has been there's been a huge focus on the well-being of people given the challenges, not just within the sector, but the challenges that people are facing both outside work as well as inside work. So that transparency has been key for us, and that expectation across all leaders is really, really important. Finding the time for those right conversations, but investing in those conversations is absolutely key.
Yeah, no, I like that. And you mentioned something previously about unions, and I've not actually spoken about this on the podcast before, but I'd be interested to just get your view on how you've navigated staff within unions and like what your lived experience has been. Because obviously in other organisations and some organisations, if relations start to break down in culture, you kind of like need to be working with unions. But how have you experienced that at Weaver Vale and yourself?
We've always had union involvement at the trust. From my perspective, having been here almost 8 years now, early days is going and talking and meeting, listening, understanding where those boundaries lie, getting the right agreements in place about what we will and what we won't engage and consult around. And then I think it's back to the point I make about, the work we do with customers, the work we do internally in terms of engagement and understanding, and openness and honesty and transparency. So, we've got a good relationship with the unions that work with us. We've got I think it's around about 25 to 30% of the workforce we think are recognised by unions. So that in itself is quite a challenge in terms of recognising that you may have 65, 70% or whatever of the workforce that aren't necessarily engaged with unions. So it's finding the right balance there around communication across the whole of our colleague population. We've always found, that engagement with unions to be really productive, really helpful on most occasions, to be fair, in terms of some of the challenges that we've faced and how we might look for solutions and how they might work with us on those things. But those relationships have been really, really, underpinned and predicated on real openness and transparency, about the challenges we might be facing, and therefore, the rationale around our thinking around cost of living, etc. So openness, honesty. We don't always see eye to eye, and there are times when we have to agree to disagree. But the reality is, it's those open conversations that have, and that openness and transparency that I think has been sort of the bedrock of the foundation of how we work so well with unions, to be fair.
Yeah, I love that. And I know we spoke a lot about this offline, but where do you sit personally and as an organisation, I suppose, on the talent crisis that people are talking about, the shortage of skills, the ability to not just recruit and attract people to housing? I actually think that's become a little bit easier, but how do we retain people into our sector as well? Like what comes up when you think about this talent shortage that I think the sector's talking about quite a lot now?
Without a doubt, there is a challenge around skills. There's some good initiatives within the sector around how we might want to promote the sector as a place that people want to come and work. And I think once people typically understand what we're about and what we do, and once people are hooked in, they do leave the sector, but very rarely do they in any numbers. And we've got colleagues moving around the sector indeed. For us at the Trust, being where we're located between sort of two big, quite city regions, and because of our approach about that engagement piece I mentioned before, and the best companies, without a doubt, people do come to us and reference best companies, and therefore there is absolute value seen, not necessarily in best companies, but I think in our approach to engagement, listening, and how much we do value. I believe our customers and our colleagues are our greatest assets, really, and therefore, why wouldn't you invest time and energy in talking to and listening to and understanding? They always know best, and they typically do. So, our own people, we incentivize our own people. If we've got vacancies do you know of anyone? And they're our best advocates, I guess, really, in terms of promoting us as an organisation, along with all the tried and tested techniques we've all got now through social media. We also undertake our regular salary reviews, which everyone will do, as well as, again, back to that engagement piece, is understanding what it's not always about salary. Sometimes it's those softer rewards and that total rewards package that's of value. So I think you've got to keep having those right conversations in order to understand, what your employees, what your colleagues see that is adding value to them staying with you as an organization. And I suppose if you're reaching out and you're getting that right, then when you come to recruit, then the offer that you're putting out to the market to others is going to be there or thereabouts. So again, we put a lot of time and energy into listening, that learning piece, making those adjustments where we possibly can. And I think some of that has helped us certainly on the retention side, and has certainly helped us in terms of the image that the organisation's got, and the promotion that we get from within and from people who leave us, actually. And I think through those small things about, I say before, I meet with new starters and try and understand what's attracted them to come to us, and as I say, and enhancing that value, and then taking that forward and helping with the next recruitment, or adjusting our existing approach to that offer, all helps with that retention piece as well.
Yeah. Where do you sit on trying to help in the communities? So, I've done a few podcasts recently, actually, where the 20% movement in Greater Manchester are trying to get more of our residents and more of our tenants into roles within our organisations and helping with skills and retooling and reskilling. What do you think about that in terms of trying to utilize our communities more for some of the roles we're trying to recruit in our organizations, and getting more of the people that have certainly got that purpose and that ability to do the stuff from a personality culture point of view, but might just need some extra skills to do the jobs? But is that something that we can do in the future as a sector, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got some real good success stories in that space, and we actually do promote that when we go out within communities. Our apprenticeship program absolutely looks at local younger people often, and we've got great relationships with local schools, etc. So, and we've got a lot of people actually within the trust who are our tenants as well. That's something we actively promote, and I think I mentioned earlier about that point about incentivizing colleagues. If you know of individuals, put them, request, promote them, tell them to make that all important application to us. So there's lots of things that we're already doing in that space, and I think it's really, really important from a local values point of view. But I think, again, from a local intelligence point of view, doing the job, the stuff on the ground that really matters. If you can engage people who live local, and if they are tenants indeed as well, then the real value that's created, not just because of the work they do, but actually their lived and living experience of those services that you deliver, is so powerful. And we've got lots of examples of that, and it's really, really helped us in shaping services, but it's also helped on an everyday basis in terms of just getting access into properties sometimes. Oh, I know and we all have to be careful around information sharing and all the rest of it. But some of those real practical things on occasions are absolutely invaluable, really. So yeah, we're all for that local employment piece, and have got quite a lot of success. We've also got an employability skills sort of service that we offer, and that really helps as well with some of that local connection, and providing and offering value through jobs locally across our communities.
No, it's amazing. We just supported the CIH and Ellie Holt on a Choose Housing campaign, and actually it's fascinating where people have come from in their careers to get into housing, and how passionate people about our sector. And we were talking offline, and do you know what? The purpose is absolutely at the forefront of all of the people that I spoke to for that Choose Housing campaign. And actually, I think our sector has become way more interesting with sustainability, IT, digital. There's jobs for every sort of person now into our sector. And I think it's quite refreshing when you get out there and speak to people about their backgrounds and how they got into the sector, that it is a great place to be. And actually, we've just got to keep promoting that on all these different channels and making sure that the word gets out that we are a great place to be, and you can have an unbelievable career in our housing sector. And I think, yeah, it's been a really good time to just see the good work going on in our sector.
Yeah, and I think coming back to that point around culture, and we did have an element of, you had to be seen to be doing, so to speak, and I think, we're working virtually now, and I think we've got colleagues. I think the world of employment has been opened up massively through technology, but also through a different mindset and a different change. So, I mentioned before, we talk about outcomes. It's not about the time you spend on something. It's actually about the value of the outcome that's created. So, we do employ people now, people who live up in Scotland, down in Bristol, etc. Yes, we expect to see them from time to time, but back to culture. We trust people. We trust people through technology. We can see people anyway and connect. But I think technology has opened up that the opportunity to employ people, a broader range of people from a broader geographical spread. And I think that can only be a good thing for us, and it's something that certainly we've really valued and got value from, really.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think as we wrap up then, Wayne, just kind of what's next? You've just had your rating. You've done quite a lot of work in the last 12 months, but what are you excited about in the future? Kind of what are you trying to drive towards next for Weaver Vale?
The journey hasn't ended. It goes on, as I mentioned before. We've had a stop along the way, the really important inspection process, which has given us a real sense of we're on the right direction here. We're well financially well governed, but that consumer piece, we're absolutely pointing in the right direction. But we're only as good as the job we do today, the job we do tomorrow, and that's something that we're not complacent in that. And the job at the moment, all the challenges we face financially as a sector, ever increasing expectations of customers, and why shouldn't they be? But also customers who, tenants who are finding themselves really quite challenged at the moment with cost of living continually rolling forward, etc., and the challenges in the economic environment. So, the job goes on. So that in itself, James, is challenge enough. But what we are absolutely challenged and trying to do at the moment is that all important balance. We won't be knocked off our focus around delivering good quality services, keeping people safe, but we also want to grow in a sustainable way. There's a housing crisis, and we want to play our part in that, as well as ensuring that the cost of living our home through making them as energy efficient as they can be, etc. So playing our part on that sustainability agenda. So the real challenge for us is finding the right balance between all of those competing priorities. But the fundamental foundation for all that is about those we currently serve, continuing to provide quality services, but also ensuring that people are safe. That's key to us. So juggling all of those things, as we're all having to do almost on a weekly basis at the moment, is the big challenge for us. And I think if we do all of those things and we're really clear and keep maintaining that focus on our purpose and our vision as an organisation, then, as I say, when the regulator comes knocking again in the future, then we'll be in a very similar place. But that's not to suggest for 1 minute that we're complacent, as I say, and that ain't going to require a load of work. But our focus is absolutely on those we serve and those we work with.
It's a lovely way to finish. I think, look, Wayne, you're very modest, but what you've created at Weaver Vale with your team it's a real success story. And I think the thing I've taken from today is openness and transparency does solve a lot of things. It's not the most sexy thing, and it's not the most, advanced way of doing things, but actually it does create a great culture, and it does give people the ability to have a voice, and customers. And you should be really proud of what Weaver Vale have done. Like, I've interacted with the business over the last 10 years, and it's a really nice place to be, and it's a really, really good culture of an organisation. So appreciate all your insights, and thank you for coming on The Hip.
No, thanks, James. Thanks for your time. Take care.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to another episode of The Hip. If you'd like to hear more from us, please be sure to follow us on your favourite podcast platform. We are also running a 30-minute clinic free of charge to any clients that want to recruit in a more inclusive way. For more information, please reach out to us on our website, andersonjames.com.